Thank you. So first of all, thank you all for being here. So today I want to talk to you about something that is very important for us at Ledger, but I think it's very important also for the ecosystem, because today self-custody has evolved from a time a few years back where it was really about protecting yourself against like the jungle that the Web3 was. Nowadays, I think self-custody is evolving into something that is much more rewarding than being on exchanges or being like in a place where, for example, you buy ETF with traditional finance. So first of all, you might wonder, why self-custody matter and why it's important and why you should care. So first of all, if you look at our traditional society and how tech has evolved over the past 10 years, you've become so used of just being a user. And by just being a user, what I mean is the fact that today you don't own the experience that you use. So if I take Gmail, Instagram, all the apps that you have on your phone, today, basically, a company, a service provider, is granting you access to your own data and to your own experience. They can remove it at any time, and they can say, okay, tomorrow you cannot access this service. We don't want you to access it. We can change our rules. We can make you pay for accessing the service. So basically, you're really just a user. And just being a user can be fine for as long as you trust the service provider. But if the service provider go rogue, basically you lost everything. The second thing that I think is really critical also for self-custody is since the beginning of time, people were really caring about their financial well-being and how to grow their financial wealth. So it's not for being greedy or anything, it's just the fact that when you work hard and you win a certain amount of wealth, you want to protect it, but as well you want to grow it in a reasonable manner. And the main reason, and I think this stage is called Nakamoto, the main reason Bitcoin was created was in defiance of the financial system after 2008, where people realized that at the end of the day, all their saving, all their hard work was not under their control. Basically, they were giving it away in the power of financial institutions that could be trustworthy as well as not so trustworthy. Then, last but not least, I think it's something that people sometimes forget, but one of the main benefits of the blockchain is this, I would say, limitless and permissionless world where anybody can create application on a standardized ledger, and they can enable anyone to create any kind of application that open basically endless opportunity. So today everybody thinks about crypto mostly because of the coin, because of the price of the coin, but at the end of the day it's more than that, and we'll see more in the future. So actually there was just this morning something that resonated even more than this, is to get to self-custody, you need your keys. So that's the principle of self-custody, is to own the keys to basically the blockchain and to your ledger to be able to interact with your coin and with your digital asset. So these two examples showcase that when you want this freedom, actually you really need to be very careful the way you interact with it. And WazirX was something that happened last year, and Bybit, you must have heard about it at the beginning of this year, where security, the security hygiene and practices by this company were not to the level that is needed to be safe on the blockchain. And this morning, actually, the Torchain, if you're familiar with the cross-chain protocol, owner got his wallet drained, basically was using a software wallet, and he got attacked, and he lost a few $1 million worth of his funds. So it's really important when you look at self-custody to be aware that it's a huge responsibility. It brings a lot of benefits, but you shouldn't underestimate how you set up your self-custody. It doesn't stop here. So a few months ago, there was a massive leak of password. So password is also at the center of our ecosystem. If you use an exchange, if you use just Gmail, if you use any kind of services, it's probably the worst authentication method that we've used for way too long, where you use basically passwords that are memorable for the user, reused, that are not safe. And at the bottom right, it's an example which was very scary as well. It's 16 million of passwords for PayPal that were leaked. And the most scary part is the price at the bottom. So they were sold for only 750 USD. So you see your data doesn't have a lot of value for hackers. So what do you need to be in control? Because at the end, self-custody gives you back the control. So obviously, the starting point is security, and I'm not saying it because I'm from Ledger. It's basically you need a secure hardware because the way you protect your keys is the root of everything. So if you don't protect them, basically you can lose it all. The second element is understanding what you're doing. So understanding and having a clear intent, basically knowing what you want to do is also super important, because if you have the safest security setup, but you don't understand at all what you're doing, you're just going to get scammed. Third piece, scam detection. So humans are not basically able to assess risk as well as machines. The beauty of the blockchain is that it's an open ledger. So you have a lot of services and things that run that are able to look at patterns, that are looking at the behavior of addresses and smart contracts, and they are able to basically give you a risk assessment about what you're about to do. Passwordless login, I think it's something that hopefully most of you are aware of, which is pushed by the FIDO2 consortium, which aim at replacing fallible password by a principle that is very core to the blockchain. It's basically a private key and a public key, and instead of sending a hash of your password, basically you're authenticating yourself by signing a challenge with your private key. Last but not least, data encryption. So this one is also even very important in the age of AI, because to train models and to make AI better, you need a lot of data, but again, you lose the control and the protection of your own data. So at Ledger, we also work really hard on trying to bring at the same level as security the privacy that we grant our users, and I will show you a protocol that we developed last year. So I will give you the anatomy of a hardware wallet. So it's interesting because a few people in the room came to our booth and asked, why should I care about a ledger? What's the difference with an MPC? Why is it better than other hardware wallet? So here you will get a very simple, basically anatomy of what is required to be safe with a hardware wallet. So it's all start with a display, touch, and button. So why do you need a display? Again, it goes back to the intent. If you don't know what you're signing, you're just basically having no security at all. What we deliver at Ledger, which is pretty unique, is to ensure that what you see on your display, so you know probably all the what you see is what you sign that we mentioned in the ecosystem. To be able to have that property, you need to have a trust environment where basically the secure element, which is a chip that has been invented to protect the bank secrets with credit card, or the state secret with passport. So it's a chip that has protection against physical intrusion. So if you try, for example, to do a side channel attack, laser attack on the hardware itself, the chip erases itself up. So we built on top of this secure chip a secure OS, which is running and basically enabling you to create the keys of the user, but it's also enabling to do all the computation for all the cryptographic operations that are required with the blockchain. So your keys never leave the device when you are computing the signature, which is also a very important property, because if at the moment of signature you put them at risk, which is what is happening with a software wallet, you can store relatively securely the private keys in, for example, the secure element of the iPhone, or for the high-end Android, they have also secure element. But the problem is you cannot run any code on this secure element. So basically, every time you sign a transaction with the software wallet, the keys are on the application environment, and they're up for grab for savvy hackers. So obviously, this device communicates with a wallet. Then this wallet needs to communicate with the device, and it communicated with a microcontroller. So again, a lot of people are always asking, oh, is Bluetooth safe? Is USB safe? Should I do basically air gap? The reality is air gap brings nothing at all in terms of security. Because today, the way the security model operates is really the fact that you don't trust anything that is not in the secure element. So whatever is the method of transport, basically it doesn't matter because the user will receive a payload, no matter the delivery, if it's scanning a QR code or using Bluetooth, and after it will be parsed on the secure element, and it will be displayed on the screen. And then if the user accepts the intent and sign the transaction, then same thing, the way going back to the blockchain and to be basically broadcasted doesn't matter at all. Once it's signed, it cannot be edited or modified. So the way it works is if we take the example of a Bitcoin transaction, you create an intent on a wallet, you have an unsigned Bitcoin transaction, you send it through Bluetooth or through USB or scanning a QR code if you want to scan a QR code. And then you need to interpretate it on the secure elements. So that's why we build an open source operating system where anybody can build application on the secure elements. So it's unique. You don't have any other operating system on a secure element in the world except ours. And anyone can develop basically an application on top of it. The secure OS has all the properties of modern OS, so sandboxing, ensuring that, for example, only the Bitcoin application can access the derivation path of Bitcoin. And then what we do is we parse the raw transaction to give human-friendly term about the transaction. Of course, the blockchain is evolving. Bitcoin is the slowest, but it's still evolving with the BIP. For Ethereum, for example, we had a lot of improvement that came in the past couple of years for signing and improving the security of smart contract. So to be able to do that, you also need a secure infrastructure to update the device, because again, all the people that tell you you don't want a hardware wallet that has update is totally wrong, because you need to update to follow the protocol and the things that are evolving in the blockchain. And you also need to evolve because sometimes you have security improvement that you can make. And also you need to have this secure infrastructure to be able to provide a genuine check. So every time you set up the device, basically there is a secure channel that is open with our HSM, hardware secure module, and it enables to verify that the device is genuine and that the operating system that is running on the secure element is genuine as well. So to come back on this specific example, so I'm sure nobody in the room can tell me what this transaction is doing. So it's a typical hash that we've all gotten too familiar with. And today, if you look at the two hacks that I mentioned at the beginning for Bybit and for WazirX, basically they signed something like that. And they not only signed it once, but multiple times. And when you do that, it's no different than if I was writing a check with no amount, just signing it and giving it to somebody random in the street. If the person is somebody trustworthy, maybe they will do something nice. If they are totally untrustworthy, like most human beings, if we're honest, they will probably take advantage of it. So what we don't want to have in our ecosystem, because it prevents the growth of the ecosystem, it's to keep having like unreadable, unpredictable, and signing something that we have no clue whatsoever what it will do for the user. What did we create at Ledger? So we created the ERC 7730, which has been adopted by Ethereum, which enable any developer to create basically a JSON file format that describe the signature interface when they want to interact with a smart contract. So here you have an example of a swap. So basically it shows that you are interacting with a DEX, that you are sending a certain amount of wrap ETH, and that you are getting something back with a certain number of fees. So it's completely transparent, human readable, and you are sure that when you are signing and you have the power to sign or reject, that you get what you want. I mentioned it at the beginning, so machines are really good if you look at, for example, antivirus. It's very similar to that. You have databases of breach, Trojan horse, and all that good stuff that protect you. Here it's very similar. We use the blockchain, it's indexed, we know all the addresses of individual EOA or smart contracts, and basically it has a risk assessment for everything that you interact with. So at the same moment where you try to send the transaction, we send the payload, we simulate it with multiple providers, and then we have a public key infrastructure that ensures that when the device receives this simulation as well as the format for clear signing the transaction, everything match. So it's very important. In the Waziric case, for example, what happened is they used a transaction simulation on their laptop. The transaction simulation was good because it was actually a good payload. But in between the moment they did the transaction and they sent it to sign it on their hardware wallet, basically the transaction was modified. So you can only trust what is on the display because it's at the moment of the signature that you need to ensure that the payload match what you're trying to do. So what it does is very simple. If there is no risk, we don't burden you, obviously, with any kind of messages. But if there is a particular threat, basically you will be warned. Again, very important, we'll always let you go through. So if you want to accept and approve the transaction, you will be able to do it, but you can go back to safety. And we monitored, and since we launched it in April, we saved more than 20 million worth of crypto that would have been lost. So a lot of them were like address poisoning, when somebody was copying the wrong address in their transaction history. And basically, it's something that for me is very important for the space. We really need to be becoming a space where people are confident and trust when they do an interaction. Last but not least, you probably all heard about what happened on Monday when there was a big compromission of NPM package that were downloaded more than 2 billion times. So it was really targeting crypto users. So it was looking for addresses and it was replacing the addresses with something that was matching the beginning and the end. And within a couple of hours that the threat was detected, basically all the addresses of the attacker were blacklisted by the services. So if you were interacting with a ledger device, basically it was warning you immediately about the threat. So passwordless login is also fundamental because for us, self-custody is obviously crypto-based at the beginning, but you are not only managing crypto for yourself. Cryptography is used everywhere in your life. It's used for your identity, for your digital login, for everything. And with security key, what we brought is basically the most secure implementation of passkeys. So the way it works is you have the private keys that is generated with your ledger device. And when you authenticate via NFC, basically you are able to use your ledger as a passkey to authenticate to your favorite services. You can also use it as a 2FA, so second factor, to validate and approve a transaction. Last but not least, I mentioned privacy. So privacy is core, and I think is a strong value also of the blockchain and the space. So last year we announced the Ledger Keyring Protocol. So the way it works is that it enables you to create an infinite number of encryption key. So it's using the B protocol with a tree, leaves and branches, and it enables you basically from your ledger device that has a limited memory, about 1.5 megabytes, to create an infinite number of encryption keys, so you can encrypt messages, photos, anything you want. So it's fully open source, so anybody can use it. So if among you there are some developers that want to use it, feel free to implement on it. We made an example for Ledger Live application. So in there, you're able to encrypt your account list. So like that, all your accounts are synchronized between your different instances, and we have no clue whatsoever about your data. We don't have access to it. It's just encrypted data for us. The way it works is you authorize the application with your Ledger device to decrypt the information, and after, basically, on our servers, we only see encrypted data. So all of that is great. So obviously, it's all the setup, hygiene, and things that we provide, but it's only the beginning. If you go through that, it's because you want, obviously, to have something in return. And what are all these opportunities that I mentioned in the beginning? So I think the best way we can look at it, and it's an example with our app, obviously, it could be any app or anyone in the space, but it's a good example of what we call a crypto super app, or basically a new financial era for application and management of digital value. So you need to unramp, because today we are still in a space where for most of you, I'm sure you are paid in fiat, so you have to be able to onboard and to buy and sell, sometime to come back in the real life. You can spend basically crypto. So we have a card that is available in Germany and in many countries around the world where you can actually spend your Bitcoin, your Ethereum. So you are able to use it in your daily life with the card. You can trade and capture market volatility. So obviously, I don't know if a lot of you in the room are traders, but we live in a very volatile market. So you have the opportunity to trade without compromising on security. We also have something unique within Ledger, is the way when you trade, we do an automatic verification that the receive address belongs to you. So when you trade with us, you are ensuring that you are not losing the funds because there is a hardware verification that basically the receive address belongs to your device. Then taking control of your saving, I think there was a lot of improvement that were made with Trade Republic, for example, in Germany, that brings direct interest on your fiat. You can do exactly the same in the Web3 space. So you have a lot of lending protocol like Morpho or Aave that you can use that enable you to basically win yield on your stablecoin. You can have also yield on BTC soon, or staking, obviously, with the proof of stake protocol. The Web3 ecosystem has also a lot to offer. So you can explore game, polymarket, for example, if you want to bet on asymmetry of information. You can back up your wallet, and you have many more things you can do with your Ledger device. So here is an example. So for us also, a strong value of Ledger is offering choice. So we are not an exchange ourselves. We don't provide the service ourselves, but we aggregate. So what we do and what you see in the interface is we offer you choice. So we have plenty of providers. We are integrating the biggest name in the space. So here is an example of cross-chain where you have less protocol, but even here, you see that you have centralized partner and decentralized partner like the Torchain. And the same goes in the EVM space. So you will have the Uniswap, the 1inch, and the likes. So for us, it's always about choice and providing the user full control and having basically all the information available to make an educated choice. Same thing for basically earning yield on your crypto. So we do the same thing. We integrate all the major protocol, give you the choice. So like that, you can make an educated choice. You stay in full custody of your asset. So it's also always a strong value of Ledger. So you're always in control. Your keys are always controlling your funds. So something that we value deeply. I think that's the last slide. So for me, it's the message that I hope you will all take home is that you have the tool to be in control, because nowadays you have to realize that unfortunately in most of the things you do in your daily life, you're not in control. So you are relying on a counterparty to provide a service or to provide access to what belongs to you. So for me, if you want to change that, feel free to join us. Feel free to join the self-custody space. There are many options out there that are available. Please go on hardware self-custody. That's the best way to ensure you stay safe. Thank you.
I think if you're open to it, we have enough time for one
sure.
question. If anybody has a question for Ledger and Mr. Mathias. Okay.
So is there an integration for multi-signing with Ledger so that you basically need multiple devices?
So it's a very good topic. So it's definitely something that is very important in the space because in the case of Bybit, it was a multi-sig setup. So if you are patient, you might hear some news in the future.
And does Ledger have an integration with Gnosis Safe?
Maybe you will see it in the future. So we have an event in a month. Ledger Open, the 23rd of October. So stay tuned. You might have some interesting news there.
Thank you so much.